do you think content related to the topics like web dev or cross-platform stuff like React Native has been saturated? There won't be any feedback or response if one tried making something right now.
Yeah, there does seem to be certain areas where there's a lot more out there, and therefore it's often harder to stand out. Um, I mean, there's definitely something to that, yeah. So I think that being a little bit more mindful of, you know, how you're basically positioning and discussing the things, and trying to add like the most value compared to everyone else is one way of adding to some area where there's a lot of things already happening. So for instance, I think that Free Code Camp has a really interesting, it's called the Free Code Camp Publication Style Guide. They've
Mhm.
outlined some ideas around things like the title as well as the type of content that does really well. And I think that all of those things are extremely applicable today when you are in those types of areas, because if you just create another how to create a blog with Gatsby or Next.js and like a CMS, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of people interested in that. But they have some title ideas like, how to describe the content itself and how and what the actual content is. So more like really end-to-end examples that go through like a full overview of how to build something end to end, and not something small or medium, but more like large scale. Those things seem to do really well regardless of how much is already out there. So that's
Mhm.
one way to take it, is try to just be a little bit better than all the stuff that's out there, and go by the guidelines that are outlined there, because I think they actually are right, they are onto something there. And then the
Mhm.
other strategy is to try to find newer areas to talk about. So Vite is like a new thing that's happening now in the ecosystem that seems to be becoming pretty popular.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of Supabase. Supabase is to me starting to become really popular, but there isn't a ton of content out there. There's
Mhm.
so maybe finding the new stuff that doesn't have a ton of stuff out there and talking about it is a good strategy,
Mhm.
also to kind of stand out. But yeah, there's definitely something to that.
Right, definitely. And thinking about it as a perspective or developer relations person, for example, you are launching maybe a new API or a new product, and there's not a lot of content about it, right? How will you actually get the community excited, the developer excited to contribute back and create content for your particular product out there as like a developer relations professional?
Yeah, and I can answer that. And then I just thought of like another thing to keep in mind is that
Hmm.
regardless of what you're creating for as far as content is concerned, if you ever have a situation where you're looking to find the answer of how to do something and you can't find that, and then you have to figure it out for yourself, that is always just the most excellent thing to blog about, because you're
Right.
solving a problem, and then someone else is going to need that answer later on, and they're going to find your blog post. So like documenting the aha moments that you've had, or the things that you've actually had to spend some time figuring out, those are
Mm-hmm.
perfect things to talk about. But yeah, I mean, as far as like getting people on board or excited about a certain thing, I think most importantly, the thing that you're working on needs to warrant excitement in the first place, because I think I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of times that people are building like developer advocacy or developer relations teams now. It seems like everyone is doing that, which is awesome, but it also is leading to a lot more noise. And there are
Mm-hmm.
also companies that, in my opinion, might not even need one, or they're building something that isn't like, to me at least, that interesting or exciting. So it would be hard for me as someone that's creating content around it to be genuinely excited about it and genuinely interested. So I think the most important thing is to have something interesting to talk about in the first place. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's kind of the problem that you run into a lot of times now, where in the past, a lot of people were doing this stuff just out of pure interest. And now it's becoming more of like a business. So developer relations is now a core piece of most of these businesses. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of harder now to, I would say, discern the good from the bad a lot of times. Or I wouldn't say the good from the bad, but from the quality from the non-quality. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for me, getting into this area, like if I hadn't done this before and I had my first opportunity to get into DevRel and I was
Mm-hmm.
working on a project that wasn't interesting to me, I would still probably take it, but it would just be harder for me to kind of get my content out there, versus I think as you become a little bit more experienced and senior, you'll have the opportunities to kind of pick and choose the more interesting projects, and it solves the whole like issue in the first place. Like if you're working on something that you are genuinely interested and excited about, it kind of really shows, because you're able to really talk about it from a genuine place. And I think if you're trying to be someone speaking on behalf of a product that you actually don't believe in, it just becomes harder, because you don't really like that thing to begin with, and you're now just trying to make something happen in an area that maybe is a lot harder to make it happen.
Definitely understand that.